start by telling me, how did you even get into opera? How did you find it? What was your first experience?
So my first singing teacher, Margaret, in Middlesbrough, when I was about 16, 17, started sort of getting me off musical theatre that I've been doing in my lessons, and started throwing me a bit of German lieder and a bit of French song and then a bit of opera. And I didn't really at that age kind of have any preconceptions of any genres or anything. So I was up for anything. So she, amongst all this other classical repertoire that she was just kind of giving me to experiment in lessons, she gave me the Handel aria Lascia Ch'io pianga. And so I sang that, and I think that kind of repertoire just made my voice really kind of come alive in a way that some of the music theatre stuff we'd done before didn't quite do the trick. So, and at the time also I was singing in Tees Valley Youth Choir. So from the age of about 14, and I was doing some sort of like Amdram stuff, like, it was called Spotlight. It's a bit like Stagecoach kind of thing. And so I think the whole kind of thing just came together, like the performance and the new style of singing that kind of suited me more as my voice was developing and becoming more kind of like a grown-up voice. And then so we just kind of went from there, and then did a bit of Mozart, I think, next. And then before I knew it, I was singing Puccini and exploring all different kinds of genres of opera. And I just kind of got a bit obsessed really with learning about it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting that it was to do with finding what kind of worked for you. So how many opportunities did you get to like do shows involving this kind of thing when you were at that stage?
None.
Right.
So I still did a lot of musical theatre, and the choir did a lot of big concerts. So, like Carmina Burana, Messiah, and Mozart's Requiem and stuff like that. And we'd get guest soloists in, and we'd join, because the choir was for 14 to 19-year-olds, I think it was. Mm-hmm. So we would join sometimes with the big adult chorus for big concerts, but no actual opera until I was actually at postgrad level, actually going to study classical music myself. So that was my first opera that I was ever in, was a threepenny opera in chorus in Trinity College of Music, which is now Trinity Laban. But yeah, until then, no opera opportunities, which is really sad. Now that I look back, I think, what a shame that I couldn't do it. But there wasn't really anything.
No, this is partly why we're having this conversation, because, it's not that easy to come by, and it's not that easy to get experience in, and it's not that easy to just even encounter, and you have to be sometimes lucky with who's teaching you, and obviously you have to suit your voice, it has to suit your personality and everything. So that was the kind of beginning, was that you got to have a go through a music teacher, which is great. And then what about so you obviously had to be at Trinity Laban to do your initial performing. So how did that kind of come about? How did you decide you wanted to do that?
When I went to uni, I studied English literature, and I hadn't really done the academic music path at all because of various sort of problems in my secondary school and college. I just didn't really go down that path. We'd had a lack of music teachers, classroom music teachers in secondary school, so I didn't take GCSE music, and then kind of didn't go down that pathway. And then went to university, studied English. There wasn't really a music department at John Moores University in Liverpool where I was studying. So I just ended up doing loads of solo things, got a new teacher. I did study with Margaret for a little bit, but trying to do long distance learning at that time was really hard. No Zoom back then. And so I got a new teacher, Lynn Rogers, who was amazing. And she, again, saw my kind of operatic potential, got me to learn quite a lot of Mozart, Puccini, worked on my Italian a lot. And she kind of put me forward because I'd not done any grades. I'd done a lot of competitions, but no grades. So she said, right, go and do A-level music at night class. Do your grade 5 theory. Here are the books. Go and teach yourself. Do your grade 8 singing. And so I did all of this. And she gave me loads of performing opportunities. She would kind of book churches and put recitals on for me. And she would accompany like me and another couple of students who were kind of that sort of level, like grade 8 and diploma level. So we did that kind of thing. But I didn't do any kind of group stuff for a long time. So she said, don't be an English teacher, be a singer. And I was like, don't think so. That sounds ridiculous. And she just kept pushing me, saying, go on, just try and audition somewhere. And I was saying, but I haven't got a music degree. I've got an English degree. And then she'd put me in for some competitions, and I sang one of the Countess's arias from Marriage of Figaro and won this big thing in Liverpool, this big prize. And I remember it very well because my sister came with me to kind of watch me doing this final. And I won this enormous cup. I mean, you have to give it back the next year, but they won this enormous cup. It was so big she could wear it on her head. So we were walking through the streets of Liverpool with this big award, like this big trophy on my sister's head. And I still wasn't convinced that I could be a singer. And like nobody I knew was an opera singer. I didn't have a clue. Like even my teacher was like a teacher. She didn't really perform that much. I think she'd done a few things, but she still was just a teacher. So I thought, well, what do I do? But bless her, she convinced me to just take a punt on Trinity, and I went and did some late Easter time auditions for the postgrad, not having a clue what it even meant to study singing. I didn't have a clue what that could possibly entail, like full time. And so I went down to London. And, this was during my teacher training, by the way. So I'd done my English degree, did my teacher training, still convincing myself I'm going to be an English teacher because being a singer must be completely bonkers. And went to London thinking I've got nothing to lose. And then they offered me a place to study. And so I went, and 1 year turned into 4.
Yeah.
And then 4 years turned into another 4 at the Royal Academy of Music. And it just kind of, people just kept giving me opportunities to keep studying. And
amazing.
And so it just kind of happened.
Yeah. So having a good teacher was very critical.
Like,
as well as having the talent. The teacher
100%. And obviously like parental support is huge as well. I think my parents, it took them a long time to think to realise what a singing career could look like.
Yeah.
And that it is really more like a portfolio career, really, I suppose. And, I obviously rely on teaching and doing other things as well as my singing. And it's not just opera. I kind of, if people ask me what my job is, I say I'm an opera singer, but actually it's like oratorio and concert and recital stuff. And it's, singing at weddings and funerals and parties. And it's quite a variety actually of different engagements.
I was going to say, what do you are there any things that you like more than others? Because if that's your kind of absolute favourite is doing opera, even within that, obviously there'll be things that you prefer doing. But so in general, if you sort of had to pick one of the areas that you sing.
Yeah, I think opera probably is the favourite thing. Yeah. Because it's, just the teamwork, the storytelling, the costumes is always fun.
Yeah.
And although I do really like singing, one-off concerts and oratorio work is great, especially if you do get asked back and you build up those friendships and those relationships. But often it is just a one-off concert and you don't necessarily kind of get all the other things like the socializing and the feeling like a part of a team kind of and building something slowly over time and exploring the music making. It can be a bit like, on the day, let's just go see what we're going to do. And it's exciting. Yeah. But being in an opera where you're rehearsing a lot with the same people, as you know from doing it yourself, it just adds a different kind of, I don't know, like a different level of enjoyment, really, of the end product. Yeah. Being a lot more kind of complex in the end. And looking back, often I look back at operas that I've done and really the rehearsals were just as much fun as and the memories I have are like, oh, do you remember when this happened in this rehearsal that actually the audience never sees? That's why I like doing the opera probably the most.
I think that's a fair point. And within that, favourite composer or favourite show or
I don't know, it's really, really hard because I think sometimes what you like yourself, like listening to, or what you like, or what you'd like to think of yourself singing is not what you're offered to do.
Yeah, fair enough, yes.
And as my voice has changed and grown and progressed, I've kind of gone through different composers, I suppose. So I maybe started doing more early music and Mozart and did quite a lot of roles like that. Whereas now I'm looking at slightly bigger repertoire and, I sang Yennefer recently, which is something I would never have thought I would do, or 10, 20 years ago. I couldn't have sung it. Yeah. Couldn't have done it. It'd been impossible. So it's lovely that like new composers that I wouldn't usually have listened to or really kind of entertained the idea of are now becoming, you know, are being thrown my way, and it's lovely. Wagner's another one.
Yeah.
I never would have touched that with a barge pole.
Yeah.
But soon I'm going to be one of the Valkyries, and it's like, okay, right, this is a new avenue, which is lovely. So I don't know, it just depends. I think
keeps
depends
changing.
on the music, it keeps changing.
Evolving.
Yeah, which is really exciting.
Yeah, no, it is. It's lovely. Okay, thank you very much. I think we will leave it there for now.